Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2024 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the head programmer, and Nina Strike, founder and festival director, in conversation with John Rash and Reverend William Kearney from Our Movement Starts Here, a film that you can see in our upcoming film festival. All the information about our ticketing, films, and other events can be found at our website, peacefilmfest.org. Our in-person screenings and events begin September 17th, ending on the 22nd, and our virtual programming begins September 23rd, ending on the 29th. And now let's welcome John and Bill to the conversation. Thank you so much for this important and compelling film, this great piece of inspiring history.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, we're really glad to have you. We're really glad to be able to share this film, this important film. And let's start. John, can you tell us a little bit about the film? And Bill, can you talk about your participation in it and in the history?
I guess I'll start. So the film is a documentary that looks at history of Warren County, North Carolina, which is where Bill is from, and protests that happened there in 1982 when the state of North Carolina had cited the county as the destination for a toxic waste landfill, PCBs, and why this place was cited for this landfill was because it was the blackest, poorest county in the state, sort of the path of least resistance. And the community came together, organized, and fought against literally laid down in the middle of the road and blocked the trucks from rolling in with this toxic dirt for 6 weeks. And during that time, the terms environmental racism, environmental justice were articulated into the national media and sort of became rallying points and tools for similar communities around the world who have used those terms since to fight similar injustices. So the film looks at this story through first-person interviews with over 20 of the original activists and organizers who were part of that movement, as well as contemporary organizers and activists who are carrying the movement forward. So it's not just a history book on film, it's also a look at contemporary issues and the future of this movement through voices and folks who are still engaged in thinking about topics that are facing communities near Warren County and around the world moving forward. So that's kind of what the film sets out to do. And Bill, you can talk about sort of your perspective a little bit, but I'll say that we could not have made the film without Reverend Kearney's contributions, introducing us to people, telling us about the history of the county, really almost like a fixer on the ground, was the person that we would sort of go to and say, who could we talk to about this? And, you know, as someone who's there in the county, carrying this work forward now, really was able to introduce us within seconds often to the right person that we needed to talk to.
Hey, thank you, John. I'm excited to be here. Again, my name is Bill Kearney, and I live in Warren County. I was born and raised in Warren County. And this story is very personal to me because where the landfill was sited was known as Kearney Town because my forefathers and mom bought lots of property there, and I got relatives who live there now. I serve at Cody Springs Missionary Baptist Church, which was a hub during the protest, as I serve as a faith and health ministry coordinator and focus on the health of our individuals, health of our environment. And this, again, is very personal to me because we birthed the movement, but many of our folk don't realize the impact of what happened in Warren County, the impact it had around the globe. And I felt it was my responsibility to try and capture every story possible. A grassroots movement has many stories. So since early 2000, I've worked with partners such as John and Melanie to try and capture these stories in every way that we can. So we look for allies with the resources, skill, and knowledge to help us capture these individual stories and not necessarily tell our stories, but help us tell our stories and elevate them from grassroots to policy. So I'm really excited about this documentary. It's something that we can use to educate our community, but also be a resource across the nation, around the globe. So again, it's very personal to me because it affected my immediate family, my church family, my community, and we yet working for reparation and justice.
I was so excited when I started screening this film because I had been in college in the early 80s and hearing news reports and hearing the term environmental justice starting to bubble up and just starting to make its way into the conversation um, had a profound effect on me. I started taking environmental studies classes, and so it was so wonderful to actually see in greater depth all the people behind this important civil rights movement. People. It's the environment and civil rights put together because they really can't be taken apart, right?
Right.
So it's wonderful to have you both in conversation. But I'm going to ask kind of from two different angles. John, how did you find out about this story and decide to make a film? And Reverend Kearney, can you talk about the experience of having to, decide to cooperate and what that meant, to be telling such a very personal story to a filmmaker, and what that whole process has meant for you?
Well, I'll maybe start then and then can pass it off when we get to that point, if that's all right with you, Bill.
Okay.
So this wasn't the film that I set out to make originally. I'll say in 2018, I went to Eastern North Carolina and was looking at CAFOs there, the part of North Carolina that's been over industrialized by hog and chicken farms. This is also a contemporary environmental justice issue. These are traditionally minority communities that have been industrialized, and these lands and these folks who, traditional sort of Black communities in Eastern North Carolina are now being forced out of their homes, or literally in some cases having hog waste sprayed onto their houses from the farms that have been built right up to their back doors. So I was there for a couple of months, like interviewing folks, talking to people who were involved in ongoing movement there, and ran into another film crew who was working on the same film. And they had been there already for a couple of years, had interviewed many of the same people I'd already been talking to. I wish those folks had told me when I approached them originally, but they don't know. And I'm not competitive about these things. I think different people can tell the same story and obviously have different takes on it. But what I realized is these folks had good funding, had already been embedded there for a while. And they ended up making a film called The Smell of Money, which is a great film that looks at that issue. And I had remembered in my research, just thinking about North Carolina, which is my home state, that environmental justice, I had read in a Washington Post article, had started in Warren County, North Carolina, and I didn't even know where that was. And I had never heard the story, but it had just sort of come across my research as I was thinking about this other film that I had intended to make. So I decided to go up to Warren County just to see what this was about. And I knew there was a historical marker there. I knew some folks who knew some folks in Warren County, and immediately sort of discovered this was such a rich story, rich history that had within environmental justice circles was known, but wasn't a story that was talked about. I mean, me being a native of North Carolina had never really even heard this my entire life until I started digging into it. So I realized that this was a story that needed to be told on a wider scale. If I could use my tools as a filmmaker to help amplify that story, then that would be an important use of my time. And along the way, met Reverend Bill Kearney, who told us they were working on a 40th anniversary in 2022. So we got derailed by COVID for a couple of years, and along the way, I invited my co-director Melanie Ho to come on board with the project. So in some ways, COVID was a blessing because I probably would have wrapped the film in 2020 and just sort of made it more of a historical look at what had happened. But because of not being able to go and talk to folks and, you know, being concerned about their safety, my safety, we put the project on hold for really 2 years. And by that time, we were so close to the 40th anniversary, and Reverend Kearney really encouraged us, like, come back. We're going to do all these great things for the 40th anniversary. You really have to be here. So we came and stayed for the entire week and filmed everything that happened. There was an exhibition at UNC Library. There were talks and panel discussions at UNC Chapel Hill and Duke University. And you see snippets of all that in the film, which really makes the film so much richer because it ends up being a contemporary story and a historical story. And really, you get to see that 40-year arc of history within the film, knowing that there are moments that you're seeing that are slotted to the date of 40 years after the original protest.
Yeah. And to your question relative to me and partnering, well, my experience as a community researcher, and now on staff at the University of North Carolina Center for Health Promotion, Disease Prevention as a community outreach manager. So I knew the value of partnerships, but also knew the importance of equity within the partnerships. And what frustrated me when I moved back to Warren County was everybody around the globe, around the country was talking about our movement, but right there in the county, our young folk were ignorant of that. So very intentionally, I realized the impact of life experience, individual stories, and changing policy. So from early 2000, I was very intentional in developing partnerships and moving more toward equity, where historically we've been written about, talked about, but not really engaged in the conversation. I wanted partnership now that would help us elevate our voices. And on the other side of the product, I want equal benefit. And within the partnership with John and Melanie and our community and our church and our association, we are getting equal benefit because they're helping elevate our story, helping us elevate our capacity. So I was comfortable knowing that I had to do a little vetting for my community, not to be the spokesperson for my community, make sure that the community voice was heard and that would be mutual benefit. And so this has really been an awesome benefit, the scope of the exposure this documentary has given us and a voice. So I celebrate this relationship and all this that we've created over the years.
Well, that's that's a wonderful concept to underline, equity, and that your participation, it was a chance for you to have your voices heard, not for somebody to tell a story about you, but for you to tell your story. And I think that's really important in documentary ethics and ethics just across the board in life.
Thank you.
I agree 100% as filmmaker. Like, I never use the word subject to talk about the folks who work with us. I mean, really, like, these folks are participants, they're collaborators. They give up a tremendous amount of time. It is an invasive process, for sure. So, I really want to think of these as not just I show up in your home and spend a couple hours and then go into a dark room and then expose your life to the public, but that, as we're sitting here today, like, we're on a journey, we're going to be lifelong partners, right? And I want to help bring this film back to Warren County, be involved in Warren County in the future as much as possible. Hope that this can be a tool that they use to further their issues going forward, let people know about their story, but also when we go out into the world to show the film, like, I don't want to just be like the filmmaker in the spotlight talking about the great art that I've made, because again, I do feel like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Bill and his community and just having that opportunity to, again, amplify their story. I mean, obviously there's choices that filmmakers make that are creative, but at the end of the day, it's a trust relationship. And when we enter into that relationship, I try to communicate to folks, like, this isn't just going to be like an in and out type of thing. Like if you're going to be on the 5 o'clock news tonight, to to the point that we may end up on a trip to Florida together in a couple of years. We may end up on a trip to DC together, you know, to show this film and to talk about your story. And that's, to me, like the rewarding part of it is we're trying to start a conversation. We're trying to not just look back and sort of gaze at history and sort of say this is something that happened, but to inspire people to think about what it means to their lives, to the issues that face all of us. And also to drive people back to sort of think about, you know, if they are touched and inspired this story, maybe there's ways that they can engage with the folks who are involved with environmental justice in Warren County now, and Bill and his organization. And whether that's through donations or whether that's through collaborations or whether that's just bringing him and this film to their community to talk and to work together with other organizers and to exchange ideas. I mean, I hope that all of those things become outcomes of projects like this.
And I'd also add,
Go ahead.
in Warren County, we had the conversion of social injustice with environmental justice. So I have members of my family or descendants of enslaved people who've been fighting for social justice, found themselves have to stand up for environmental justice. So we coined the term environmental racism. So we can't solve the issue around environmental issues without dealing with racial issues. And so also, how does racism show up within the systems in which we function in the way that history is recorded? Who gets to tell the story? And so we even getting challenges now about our version of our story of a grassroots movement. So we find that we have to really challenge a lot of systems if we talk about truly developing environmentally friendly, socially friendly practices. And for some people, that's uncomfortable. So hopefully the documentary could be an introduction to discussions of around race and systemic racism, and how do we reimagine these spaces? First of all, acknowledge them. So we're looking forward to creating more products around this documentary to be engaging and help people lean into uncomfortable conversations.
They are very needed. They are very needed. And John and Bill, if you could, I know you've already touched on it a little bit, but part of the reason why this film was such a perfect fit for the Global Peace Film Festival is that we hope that our work at our film festival actually begins when the lights come up and everyone's standing a little taller in their seat and saying, what can I do? How can I help? So, you know, if you have, I know you've spoken, both of you, very eloquently about why and sort of generally some of the things that you would hope that people would do. But are there any specific things that are already developed or ways that you are already using this film in order to advance, you know, the concepts that you want to advance with it?
Right. Well, our vision for Warren County, birthplace of environmental justice for the very community that got cited, is environmental justice center of excellence, to use a vacated elementary school that sits right in the community that got dumped to be a hub, a resource for the community, to house our library, our museum, most importantly, programs around green jobs, citizen science. We're developing curriculum for our local school, which could be a model, not just for our county, but across the state, country. So we already have a vision for transitioning our community, which is considered tier 1, which is low wealth by the state. It was once one of the wealthiest counties in the state, but due to disinvestment, marginalization, racism, it set us up to be a dump site. And our vision now is to transition our community that's been traumatized from a victim to a victor. And so, yeah, we have vision. We have a nonprofit organization, Warren County Environmental Action Team, that's positioned to receive and develop these programs and partnership. So we're emerging. And I always say, what man meant for harm, God turned around for our good. And so we got dumped on, we birthed a movement. Now we want to be at the table when it comes to what does equity, what does reparation, what does fairness look like on the ground?
Yeah, I'll just echo that and say, you know, we hope that the film can be instrumental in helping Bill and his team raise money to put together the Center for the Environmental Justice Center for Excellence. And, you know, once that project really starts rolling and the film is online, like we want to direct people who watch the film and have those questions. How can I contribute, or what can I do now? if they want to contribute to those efforts. So we've already been talking about, could we set up a donation link? Is there a way for folks to sort of give back to Warren County to help them to set up this center? And then the other side of it is, there we have a website, which I think was on the slide in this talk, ejdocumentary.com, which already has full uncut video documentation of all of those events from the 40th anniversary. So all of those panel discussions, all of the march and the talks that happened that week. So that's already there for folks to view who want to dig into this history more. And then the long-term goal is to put the full uncut interviews that we collected while we were putting the film together onto that site as well as an archive, so that there are folks who are interested in this history. Unfortunately, like, we talked to over 20 people from the community who were involved in the story, and the film is 82 minutes long. And there's a lot that got left on the cutting room floor that people may be interested in. And everyone had a different set of recollections and takeaways and their own life story, how they were inspired by being involved in this movement. So we really want those to be there as a matter of public record for folks to go and use for their research, for their creative projects moving forward. So like I said before, I hope that we're not the only film that's ever made about this. And if that footage that we captured is useful to the next filmmaker that wants to tell this story in a different way, or dig into one or two sort of incidents that happened along the way, that's wonderful. And I hope that we can help pay forward a little bit to the folks who might want to be the next to sort of dig into these topics. And then the last thing I'll say on this is, to me, one of the things that I think has been one of the biggest takeaways from just learning this story, and Bill sort of alluded to this earlier, is that unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is when communities face issues like this, once the cameras go away, or once the sort of crosshairs have sort of moved on and communities aren't in imminent danger anymore, or they're still in danger, but now it's permanent, like the toxic waste has been put in, that a lot of folks in the community just go home, or there's folks in the community who want to try to own the movement to a certain degree and like claim their own legacy out of something that truly was a community effort. And I think that there's something to be learned from this story in terms of how it truly was like multiracial, multi-generational, across all sectors of the county. Folks came together. For folks who are thinking about issues like this now, how do you keep that momentum going when the imminent danger has sort of moved on, or when the cameras have gone away? How do you keep that momentum going for when the next issue arises, or for other ongoing issues that maybe you could use that energy to maybe continue to make movement in your county, movement in your state, on the local level, to keep people engaged? And I think that this is something people don't think about often because they are so worried about what's happening now. And we've talked a lot about, how to build more sustainable movement, how to organize in a way that's maybe going to keep folks engaged. And, this film doesn't dive into that in as much detail as I think we're able to in these conversations after the film, although it is alluded to. And I think for me that, Kelly, as you were talking about when the lights come on after the film, I always feel like that's a great place to start the conversation, is to talk about, what's your community dealing with right now, and how can you, one, fight the issue that you're thinking about now, but also keep folks engaged for what's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fantastic and so important. And you have both addressed, what people can do to support the film. But I think what's beautiful about what you both said is about the real collaboration and the real partnership that you've built together on this project, and that you're offering to carry forward with the results of this project and the greater, with the footage that was not able to be included in the film. So is there anything more you want to add about what people can do to support this? And finally, what's next for each of you?
Okay, well, Warren County historically was a destination place that people would come because of the mineral springs, the health resorts. It was the wealthiest county in the state. So our vision is Warren County will again be a destination where people can come and see how much we appreciate our natural resources, how we got dumped on a small slice of our history, but how now we are on the cutting edge of environmentally and socially friendly practices. So come and tour our great county, beautiful county, and we would enjoy to have you. Follow us as we complete our Warren County Environmental Action Team website. We merging that, and in other way, but definitely we open to come and tell our story. I think uniquely, we can, from those who participated in the protest, like Dolly Bear Will, Eva Clayton, Frank Balance, Wayne Mosley, they continued to work even after the cameras left by voting and putting people in place who can make a difference. So what we're trying to do is model that through our new center, that we could work with communities about what grassroots movements really look like, the importance of voter engagement, and importance of building future leaders. So for long-term and change in policies.
Bill, do you want to talk about the Warren County Environmental Action Team for a moment?
Oh, certainly. I wear a lot of hats in my community. I enjoy it. And one of the hats is being director of the Warren County Environmental Action Team, which was a network of stakeholders I brought together back in 2011 to coordinate the 30th anniversary commemoration of the birth of the environmental justice movement in Warren County. Our theme was telling our story, building our future. Again, we weren't telling our story. Other folks were building futures on our story. So we want to be able to capture those stories. In 2022, the Warren County Environmental Action Team led in the organization of facilitation of the 40th anniversary commemoration. There was really an explosion of partnerships and allies coming in. In 2023, we become a nonprofit tax-exempt organization with a vision of bringing fairness and justice to Warren County, to be a model, not just for Warren County, but others who look to Warren County as being the hub of the environmental justice movement. So we are emerging. We've done a lot in a short span of time, and but we're here to for the benefit of our community and beyond.
Thank you. And John, what are you working on next?
Good question. I'm still very engaged in sort of the impact aspect of this film. So for me, the project doesn't end when I close the editing software. So having conversations like this, thinking about where the film can go, working with organizations around the country who might be thinking about environmental justice issues or social justice issues or civil rights issues. This film, I think, touches on all these different areas of social justice, and it's really great that I think we have something that folks maybe can take to their communities and see themselves reflected. And I really hope that those folks can have a screening of the film, have their own conversation. Like Bill and I don't have to be there, right? Like we really want folks to sort of feel like this could be a tool for mobilization. So I will say, if anyone's watching this, anyone sees the film and they think, oh, this would be great to sort of show at my organization or in my community or at my church, we really want you to be able to do that. So feel free to reach out. I really want to work with folks. We aren't the type of people who are just looking to monetize our film. Like we want it to be out there. So like if there's folks that truly can use it, like we want you to use it and have it for free to show to your community. So so there's that. And then I've got some other film project ideas that I'm thinking about like in the future. I've got a short film that I'm working on right now about a political goth pop band from Athens, Georgia called Vision Video. Their singer-songwriter is he served time in Afghanistan, came back and was an EMT and firefighter in Atlanta, and used those experiences to start writing songs that are also social justice songs. They sound a lot like The Cure, but their lyrics sort of like use sort of the darkness and real world sort of like wars and sort of issues that sort of affect marginalized communities as the starting point for their lyrics. So I think they're a really amazing band. So I'm trying to make this music documentary that also has sort of a social justice issue, reflecting and amplifying the message that this great band from Athens, Georgia is sort of putting out there on a nightly basis on stage.
That's great, John. There is something about Athens, Georgia, and indie music that there's something in the water there.
For sure, for sure.
So thank you. And Reverend Kearney, I just want to underline something that you had said in closing, that it is so important that your vision of bringing people to see the beauty of Warren County, that it is not just that one incident and that one negative experience, that it is a beautiful area and people should really come and enjoy it. And we're not just the whether it's a place or a people, we're not just the worst thing that happened to us on our worst day. We have, you know, a lot to offer, and I think that's
Yes.
a beautiful message to end with.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so thank you also to everyone who has watched this great conversation with John Rash and Reverend William Kearney. And they are with the film Our Movement Starts Here. And if you'd like to follow up and get more information about their work, please go to ejdocumentary.com. That's ejdocumentary.com. Also, please go to our film festival website, peacefilmfest.org, to find out all about when you can screen this film if you are in the Central Florida area. The in-person screenings begin September 17th and end on the 22nd. Our virtual programming begins September 23rd and concludes on the 29th. Thank you again, and we will see you at the next Globe.
Oh.